A word for our listeners. Achtung Cthulhu is set in the 1930s and 40s. We will be using terms and sayings from those times, including some that could be considered offensive. It is not our intention to offend. We merely wish to offer as accurate a view of the time period as possible. Welcome to Masks of Nyarlathotep, a Nerd's Domain gaming podcast. Join us each week as our investigators uncover the corruption of the mythos in World War II. Starring George Chimples, Phil Durham, Rob Walker, Jestin Kimmet, Shirley Niedzwiecki, and Scott Troiano, with Matt Quiett running the table as the keeper. Eldritch evils and crazed Nazi cultists await you just beyond this music.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nerds Domain Presents Masks of Nyarlathotep. I'm here with Shirley.
Hello.
George.
Hello.
Scott.
We'll swallow your soul.
Phil.
Having an awesome time.
And Rob.
Having a good time?
Yeah, let's stay on that mic.
Not going to happen.
All right, last time we were put on a boat, sent to Miami. We got the books, and now we're back in D.C. for a debriefing. You are all pulled out individually. I assume by this point you will have had conversations about what to discuss and not discuss.
Okay, let's have that conversation.
Yeah, because that would be something that we should do.
Yes, please.
Go ahead. Anytime you want to start.
Marshall, what is it that you do or do not want us to touch on when we're obviously going to be brought in and debriefed?
I mean, point of order out of character. We're being debriefed by the FBI, right?
Yes.
So those guys know all the crazy stuff.
Yeah,
we
we
saw
shouldn't
initially.
have to hold back. As long as we're with people that sent us out, I don't think we should have to hold back on anything. Aside from maybe
Right.
Evie being a horror.
Because in service of my country, thank you very much.
And the gentleman on the boat.
So,
Sir, that was inappropriate.
With the understanding that she was playing a part, and
Yes. She was serving her country as best she could.
Anywho, are we going to get to this debriefing?
It'll take a couple days.
it takes a couple of days, I guess.
Well, we're going from Miami, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a couple of days. Actually, it's probably just over a day by train from Miami. When you get there, you are pulled in. You're brought into the office, made to sit around. They check the luggage into evidence, including the journals. They do end up taking the journal from you. Mm-hmm. When you're brought in to be debriefed individually, it's the director himself, Hoover, and one of his his sub-directors. What do you call those?
Assistant directors?
Assistant directors. Thank you. Assistant directors. One
What
of his
is-
assistant directors.
What is Hoover wearing?
A suit appropriate for, working. A
Okay.
suit.
Good to know.
Wouldn't it be a deputy?
Deputy director,
Sure. No, probably an
associate director, executive vice director.
This is, you opened this can of worms, though, Shirley. So, you are each individually interviewed, and then after they seem to get what they feel is the full story out of each of you, the questions are a little grilling, a little rude at times, like they don't believe you, like you let a Nazi spy get away and they're not happy about it, but you have a lot of information. They do bring you into a room together with the director and with what you're going to have to guess is like 4 or 5 department heads. And Hoover brings in a few folders, hands a folder to you, Gorp, and then he sits down behind his desk.
Rifles in the folder.
Looks like contracts. A lot of them have your name on it.
Oh.
So, Mr. Gorp, you will be offered in recognition and thanks for what you've done. Since we can't talk about it, and this will stay silent between us. The British Empire has been informed that the Earl of Sandwich is involved with the Nazis, but you are not to discuss this with anyone. And thanks for what you've done, Mr. Gorp. That is your full, your full contract for work with us. Will be brought in as an agent, probably a field agent, with some standing within the bureau. You'll be walked through the whole thing. There's quite a few things to discuss and consider. For the rest of you, some of you I can offer employment. Most of you I can offer employment officially. Mr. Carlos, can't remember your character's last name because it's a hyphenated thing.
Aguirre Aznar.
Mr. Aguirre Aznar, you are not someone that I can offer employment, not someone I would want to offer official employment. However, we could employ you in an unofficial capacity.
I get to fight Germans.
You get to fight for the freedom of America, the safety of America, and typically that will mean the Germans.
America, to be honest, doesn't mean much to me, but anti-fascism does.
Well, we are anti-fascists.
That's good enough.
Anti-fascites?
Fascists.
Then that's something that we should consider. Commander?
Yes, sir.
I've spoken with your commanding officer, and he is prepared to release you if that is something you wish to do. This isn't like a typical promotion. You won't retain rank. You'll retain your rank as retired. But you won't retain a full rank within the military. You'll be expected to follow standard protocol that you don't know yet with us. Is that something you have any interest in doing?
It's something that I have interest in. I'd need to know more, of course.
And we can sit you down with one of our directors and walk you through what we have in mind. More than likely, I will keep as many of you together as I can.
Wonderful.
If field work is something you're comfortable with, and I think the three of you that I've spoken with spoken directly to so far are comfortable with field work. Professor?
Yes, Director.
From the reports we've gotten, you're not comfortable in the field.
It's probably not my best location, though.
Have you ever considered being an analyst?
I analyze lots of things.
Within the FBI, we could use a man of your talents and understanding.
I think that helping the FBI is something that I'm interested in.
Good.
I wouldn't want to necessarily lose the position that I have with the university.
I'm sure that can be worked out. In times of concern, things can be arranged.
As long as those are taken into account, I don't see any issue with that at all.
Good. And Miss October.
Yes.
Your understanding of both high society and the darker aspects of humanity would be exceptionally valuable in the field. The five other members of this group have spoken highly of you, of your ability to do what it takes to take care of the job. He doesn't even smirk at that. He seems sincere. Your ability to blend in and your contacts are something that would be quite useful.
Would I be able to study the books that were taken in further?
The books that belong to the university will be here shortly, for a short while, and then they will be given back to the university. The rest of the contents that you brought back would be yours to peruse when you had time. And I will warn you, this does come with training, so you may not have a lot of time at first.
It comes with, did you say training?
Training. You have to understand certain things. I'm sure the commander...
Would I have a few days to accompany the books to the university and then come back?
They would need a detail, and I don't see a reason you couldn't be on it.
Okay.
And here, this folder, and he kind of slides it across his desk, and one of the directors gets up and brings it to you. You're sitting back far enough that you can't quite reach it. Is from your uncle.
Okay. She takes it hesitantly and then opens it. Is this something I should be reading in private?
Perhaps, but I will explain to the other gentleman what is going on. Perhaps it would be best if you read it first.
So we're not all in a room together?
You are. You are, but it would be he's saying it might be best if you knew what was going on by whatever's in the folder before he just blurts it out to everyone.
Okay, so I read it.
There's a letter that says, Dear Evelyn, while life is often hard, we don't always get our way. Oh, I'm sorry. While life is often hard and we don't often always get our way, I hope this gives you some closure. I am off once again to aid my friends across the pond. Your uncle. Augustus requested to be allowed to go to France. He said something about the Foreign Legion.
Well, he's always been pretty eccentric and going off on adventures on his own. This isn't anything new, though kind of shocking he didn't tell me in person.
He seemed determined, and he felt that your disposition would be affected, and that perhaps him being away would be better. He felt that he had let you down.
Yes. Okay. I should like to get a letter to him as soon as possible.
I'll do my best. Will you be joining us?
Yes. I would like to study those books further.
Excellent. He hands the other four of you folders that have similar contracts in them, and kind of walks through exactly a little bit of what being part of the FBI is. Everybody, including you, Commander, will be required to go through training, though you'll probably not need to worry about some of it.
No worries.
Like espionage training. What we are going to do is a couple of things. So I'm going to talk to each one of you about what the next 6 months looks like, and then we'll talk about the next. We're going to put you on we're going to put your team on a mission that you will not actually roleplay through, to kind of give you a more group cohesion and understanding of each other's abilities and more reason to up some stats. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. I would like to, when I accompany the books back to the university,
we'll
talk
get
to Evie.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
So, first, let's start with Gorp. It's been 6 months in training. I mean, this is basic hand signals, reading people, just general spy things. You learn about foreign leaders, which is something that you kind of knew a little bit about, but this is like more in depth. Like Hitler takes his coffee or his tea this way and his coffee this way, and this is why it's important. And like they give you a brief overview of several high-ranking members of the Nazi Party, several members of the Italian regime. Given that Austria just switched over, some of what happened there, the actual parts of what happened, and not just what was kind of reported out. But your training is kind of very intense. You are forced. You resign from the marshals, which they seem unhappy, but they understand. And at this point in time, the FBI kind of has a free ticket to do whatever they want. No one's really doing a lot of oversight, so it's kind of expected and understood. You do get taught some German, some basic German. So we're going to give you. We're going to write this down. we're going to give you a 15% in German. So basically, you're going to pick up on the most parts of a conversation that's about basic things. But if they start getting into deep German culture, you won't understand quite what's going on. Think of it like, have you seen Inglourious Basterds?
No.
Okay. You should watch it unless you absolutely hate Tarantino.
I'm not a big fan.
It might be worth it, especially in this situation.
Okay.
So the basic idea is that these men went behind German lines and just killed Germans. And they got caught. This is kind of the spoiler, so sorry. They got caught because they ordered 3 beers. That's your index, middle, and ring. That is not the German 3. The German 3 is your thumb, index, and middle. You wouldn't know that with a 15 or whatever I gave you.
Okay.
You would give the wrong 3 and be killed because of it. But like the commander has like an 80.
85.
Yeah. So he knows to give the German 3 when he's
Okay.
when he's speaking to Germans. That's the kind of thing that's the disconnect there.
And it was one of those things where if you know that and the derivation of the impact on sign language and things like that, when we saw the movie when we saw it in the theaters, the wife and I were the only. He said, "We 3 beers, please."
Yeah.
And the wife and I went, "Oh!" And everybody else in the theater was like, "What?" And then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. So you are given some training in German. You're given some training in other things. We'll go over that briefly. And then you're sent to you're sent on like a training op by yourself. You have a handler. They just have you watch a few things, get a feel for how boring spy work can be, and it really is slow and not really. It's nothing to write home about. I mean, you move a plant once, and you watch a couple of windows, and you look for signs, and then you report back. It's just basic small stuff that a low-level agent would be. However, when you get done with training, you're given agent status with the understanding that other agents should defer to you in the field.
Okay.
That doesn't give you a rank per se, because there probably is ranks within the FBI, but that's just when you're in the field. If you show up on the scene and there are other agents there, they're probably going to look to you for some mode of leadership for them.
Okay.
Professor, you are given the same kind of basic training, just learning the hand signs and that kind of stuff, but mostly you're taught to read reports and to look at things. You're brought a lot of reports about occult books that have been stolen or missing or borrowed, or it seems like they're beginning to grab kind of as much as they can, an index of where important books might be in the world. It's very incomplete. In fact, it's incomplete enough that you know that like you have 3 probably very rare books at home that are just not necessarily thick occult text, but have good information in them. They have no idea about. And one of the big things they keep telling you is that they need to know everything that's out there so they can try and track and monitor it as best as possible. And that's going to be a big part of what you're doing, is tracking that down, finding out what's dangerous, what's not. So that if you get one copy of the Necronomicon, you know what's in that copy or what's in that book and what to, if other ones need to be picked up.
I'll probably be a real smarty pants.
Oh yeah.
That.
Oh yeah. And
Why aren't you tracking this? Why aren't you tracking that? How do you not know this?
you're put under a director, and it's quickly made clear that you're going to become a deputy director under that director and given a big team for this very thing. So you may end up leading or sending people out to do gathering missions. Scott, you're put through training. You know a lot of the stuff that you're being trained on. Some of it's new. Some of it's a little more flashy than you're used to. Like it's newer in a sense of you've not done it quite this way before. But it makes sense. It feels natural.
When you say flashy, what do you mean?
You're used to military intelligence, which is usually just low grade, like let a guy know about a thing.
Right.
This is more like let a guy know about a thing and then murder him. Like it's a lot more physically aggressive.
Okay.
Not that you can't do that. It's just
Sure. It's just a different
never
mentality. Yeah.
Whereas the military can't do a lot of things because then it's a military action. This is more like
Meh.
You can do whatever you want, and it's given. The difference is that one you were given. Here's $5 you can spend. Here's a blank check. Write whatever you want. We don't care.
Okay.
Clean it up afterwards.
Right.
You do spend some time out in the field. You get a little more information. You learn a little bit more how they do things.
Okay.
It's it's a lot of the things It's just a little bit of different technique here and there.
Okay.
Nothing
Good.
big. Unfortunately, that also means that you won't be picking up a lot.
That's
might
fine.
give you a little bump in here and there. They do ask you that you learn a little bit of Italian, just enough conversational Italian, just a bare minimum.
Screech the pescare.
Word.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's what I went with.
Okay.
George, you are treated strangely, kind of. Again,
Wow, big surprise.
Again, like you have some importance, but not enough to be treated nicely.
Sure.
They put you through some just basic espionage training, scoff at you a lot because you don't seem to be grasping certain aspects of the English language because your English isn't very high, is it?
No, it's 40.
Yeah. But you do pick up a lot of that. You speak Spanish. Do you speak anything else?
German and Russian.
German and Russian. You are walked through a lot of that. They do not put you on a field op, like a training op. They don't seem to trust you without a handler right with you all the time.
I make repeated requests to learn how to handle explosives.
Yeah, they'll teach you that.
Would that be combat engineering?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
I don't know. Let me look it up in the book.
Is that like
no, it's
Bud's
under
training?
demolitions, under your combat skills on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Up. It's
Oh,
up.
cool. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Combat engineering is a military skill. Demolitions is more of an espionage-ish thing.
Sure.
So that's the big difference. So no, they teach you that. They're happy to teach you a little bit of that. They don't teach you to make anything huge, but they do teach you how to shape a blast so that it does what you want.
Yeah. I just seem much more interested in like technical stuff. Is
Okay.
what I seem like. That's what I focus the most on when they're like teaching it to me, and when they're like, "Well, this is how you need to talk to this guy or that." I'm like, whatever.
They do also run you through what they believe is how the German planes, their engines look and work.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
So they kind of walk you through a little bit of that, give you a chance to see that. Any plane parts that you want to look at to get a feel for if they have access to it or can get information on it, they understand that that's a skill you have. They want to give you as much information as possible on that kind of stuff. Finally, Evelyn,
Yes.
you are put through the same kind of schooling on espionage, basic hand signals, moving things, dropping things. They put you out in the field. Yours is more of a, like, they send you to a high society party to watch people. So you end up meeting some senators and some actual high up muckety mucks. And while you're watching, while you're doing your things, you start to move in the circles again that you used to. Everything goes pretty well. They ask you to learn a little bit of Italian. So we'll add, Scott, we'll put a little bit of Italian, so like 15% on your sheet. Same thing with you, Shirley, 15%. So everything goes pretty well over that time. So Phil, you said you were going to switch your character. Do you have a name yet?
No, I wasn't sure what the ethnic background might be.
Irish would be a good one for
Sure.
what you mentioned.
Yeah.
So you want to give us just a really brief, listeners at home, we will go over Phil's character creation briefly in like a 15-minute episode. We're just going to touch on his strengths then. But right now he's making a character. He's going to make a character to replace Dr. Washington to kind of switch over. So Phil, why don't you give just a brief explanation of what you're thinking?
Just thinking someone who was coming more from a background where he was perhaps raised in a culture or a secret society that was specifically a small culture or society that was specifically counter-cult. And so had received specific training as he was raised as be specifically counter to cult activities.
Okay, so religious, perhaps?
Yeah, it could be tied to a church or
So,
organization.
would you mind being Catholic?
No, that wouldn't be a problem.
So, an Irish Catholic, probably a priest, but you wouldn't announce that, and you look at the darker aspects of humanity and
He could be a Carolinian.
Well, Shirley's just throwing out names there.
As long as kind of the idea was that from a young, my idea was that from a young age this character was raised specifically to fight the occult.
Probably raised within a Catholic orphanage. Go ahead, Scott.
He could be an alienist.
Oh. No.
So yeah, probably within a Catholic orphanage.
Okay.
And when you showed certain aptitudes, maybe a priest took you in, and you have officially been given the collar and gone through that kind of stuff, but you work in a different way. And the when you found out the FBI was looking for that, you got dispensation to go and work with them.
I would probably ultimately serve the church, but if in serving the church I'm serving the FBI,
They're going to give you more access to things and to give you the chance to track them
If
down.
the church says go serve the FBI, then I'll go serve the FBI.
So, do you have a name yet? I know you've totally been working hard on this. We'll come back to that. So,
Patty?
Declan O'Monaghan.
Declan O'Monaghan is a good name. So you guys are sent on... Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Let's back up. Let's go ahead and level up your characters.
Okay, cool. How do we do that again? So I always forgot.
Does that mean I automatically get healed and get my sanity back?
Okay, first thing you're going to do is talk
Does that
on
mean
mic.
I automatically get healed and my sanity back?
No.
Sorry.
It does mean that you get an opportunity to buy one of our sweet new T-shirts at the mall. At that kiosk, you know about.
George, stop sending our listeners to the wrong place to buy our T-shirts.
Go to the kiosk at the mall and say, I want those hot new T-shirts. They'll know what you're talking about. Give them,
Okay,
give them the high sign.
Shirley.
tpublic.com.
Stop it.
Do I get totally healed?
Yes.
Thank you.
You get no sanity back.
Why not? I thought I got 3 sanity if I did a thing.
No. Everybody
Yeah,
gets
what's
to
up?
roll a D3 and they can get that much sanity back. Phil, don't worry about that.
Did you just say I do or don't?
You don't until you roll this dice and do what I'm asking.
And then how much are you back?
Divide it in half.
Okay, got it.
Round up.
Told you.
Okay. So then anything you have marked the box, you're going to roll percentage. Try and roll above. If you do, you roll a D10 and add it to it. First, before we do that, though, Rob,
Give that one more time.
George, you're going to look at your number, anything you've marked. You're going to wait and not roll, Shirley. You're going to roll above that number. If you do, then you'll roll a D10 and add it to that number. Before we do that, Rob, George, Shirley, add 25 to espionage, whatever the base is. And then also add 10 to listen and spot hidden. Scott, can I see your character sheet real quick? Can you hand it down this way?
To what?
Somebody grab that.
Listen and spot hidden.
You're also all going to add, all of you, and this includes Scott when he gets his sheet back, add 5 to credit rating, and then you still get to be able to roll.
Would you like to look at mine since I'm not using it?
No, because Scott is specifically the espionage character. That's why I'm looking at it.
German?
If you already have it on there, that's fine. Did I ask you to add German? No, I didn't. You didn't add any languages. You had enough. And that back down.
Can I
Okay.
get 5 to credit rating?
That's correct. 5 to credit rating, 10 to spot hidden and listen, and then 25 to espionage.
Does that include me?
You do not get any of that because you've
Okay.
already trained.
Okay, just checking.
You get the credit rating. You
What
do
about-
get the 5
Fine.
credit rating?
Do I get any added to demolitions?
Yes, you do. You get, let's say, 20 to... What's the base on demolitions?
1.
20 to demolitions. 20, so you'll get a 21 there. Then go ahead and go through and roll everything. And Phil will give you some artificial numbers to add to stuff.
So I have to get higher.
Yay.
Yes, you do. So, listeners, so that everybody knows, we're going to be taking a short hop into the future, into 1939 for our not next game, but probably the game, or not next episode, but probably the episode after that. Next episode, we're probably going to talk our way through a basic mission to give everybody a kind of a a reason to feel camaraderie, especially with their new, at least one new person and maybe two, depending on where we're at with Jesse, and give them kind of a way to feel a little experienced in the field as well.
First,
Yes.
can you read that roll?
0. That says 90. 90 even.
If you bump something above 90, let me know. So while we're doing that, we are also going to kind of give everybody a little bit of a bump there as well, so that feels like they actually went on a mission, and maybe give them a little more sanity back. However, once we do the time jump and we hit 1939, sanity is going to get a little more easy to lose. It's going to kind of fly out of them at that point. And that will be the second game in our first arc. We do have 3 arcs. We have early war, then we have mid-war, and late war. So this has been the first story in the 3-story arc of the early war. And our hope is to keep doing this and having fun. And I'm just trying to vamp for time. What do you think, Phil?
I'm thinking that we got to talk about these T-shirts, baby.
Oh my! No, let's not
talk about these T-shirts.
You know what? I'll talk about the T-shirts if you just keep working on your character. Don't tell me you're done. You're not done.
I'm done. You worry about those towers. I'll worry about those T-shirts.
Okay, so just as a
Stay
reminder,
on T-shirts.
Just as a reminder, check out the show notes. We've got some shirts to some links to.
I was just gonna go to Tashi Station and pick some T-shirts.
Some T-shirt converters.
What's the deal with these T-shirts? They're excellent.
Do I get any addition to occult? Because I was reading the books
Right.
and the journals.
You'll have more time to read those by the time we start the next actual game.
Okay.
We'll discuss what that means. Because there's sanity loss in that as well. So we do have T-shirt links in our show notes. You should check that out. There's an awesome Cthulhu Explosion shirt that we like. And then we have our own shirts over on our store. All right, so the last thing we're going to do with this episode is we're going to get into some listener mail. So the first question is for everybody that was on the podcast from before. How did it feel losing your characters? So any of you 3 can answer that. I guess Rob or Phil, if you have input, you're more than welcome to put it out there. But you haven't lost characters yet. I guess, Phil, you just lost a character technically. Anybody?
Like, from this last time or from the
This
time
is mostly
before?
season 1, I'm pretty sure.
Well, our characters went nut bar.
Yeah.
How'd that
I
feel?
don't feel like we lost our characters. I
Well-
feel like, you know,
Because they still live, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
So it gave me some hope.
It did give me a chance to try and play a different style because, Weld was very outgoing and very, seemed like the face sometimes, for lack of a better term, and then went to being consciously more of a muscle, quiet guy. But
Yeah, the weirdest face ever.
Well,
not the best face of the group.
he wasn't intended to be; it just kind of fell into the role. So it was nice to have a change of pace, but it was also at the same time I was like, you do kind of want to see the guy get through the adventure and kind of do things, and but it's a horror game, so you kind of expect you should be prepared for some loss.
I was not. I didn't, when I make a character, I don't ever think that they're gonna die. That way I feel it more intensely at the end.
Okay. Well, and you were straight retired a character. How'd you feel about that?
I just felt like she didn't develop the way that I wanted her to, and
then you murdered a whole village.
Well, yeah, I mean that was one of the things. Like
We were all complicit in that.
Ish.
Even
Totally.
though everyone was complicit in murdering that village, poisoning that well,
She pulled
I
the
just
trigger.
felt like I really wasn't into her character and her traits and her personality. And when everything happened the way that it did, it gave me an out, and I was like, dude, I'm so out.
So what about you, Scott? Because you had some trouble getting into Wilkerson.
How did I feel?
Yeah.
One word. Betrayed.
Betrayed as a player?
Yes.
Okay.
And as a character. Okay, and here's why. I went down under the pyramid, and I thought, okay, well, let's rescue the body. And there was a sentiment along the... I mean, I was down relatively early in that episode, which is fine, and I stepped away from the table because I didn't want to affect have an impact from an unconscious perspective on the table as I was going, "What? You're going to leave me?" And so I didn't want to add that. And then I came back to find that the party, through potential maneuvers of its own or a specific individual or two, had said, we can't go back for him. We got to leave him. We got to go. So that was Wilkerson. And I couldn't really feel betrayed because I wasn't really at the table when that, so I didn't have the whole story firsthand. My next character, when I went, well, wait a minute, this was your mom and dad. The professor needs to be called to the, oh yeah, kill that guy, kill him dead. That carried with it a little bit more. That was like, oh, that's just Jason stabbing me in the face. And that carried with a little bit more betrayal. I can understand how you may not have been able to sacrifice life and limb to pull Wilkerson's body out, especially if it was like, oh, dude, that guy got shot like 9 times in the face.
Well, it was also, my character definitely wanted to get the body, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, you've got a wave of cultists coming at you, way more than you can possibly handle. It's just like,
I believe you were also
right, and that's why I felt betrayed with the second one far more than with Wilkerson.
Well, and Wilkerson was caught behind there was a blast that caved in between
there
you
was
and
a
the group,
cave-in.
so they could have gone around. It would have meant the death of the whole party. It was really, and you guys were already down somebody.
Yeah,
because 2 people, because Jesse was in the hospital and Johnny had lost his mind.
Yeah.
So like you were really hurting at that point.
Oh yeah.
So.
So that's why I don't really feel betrayed for Wilkerson. It's kind of neat to see him come back, but that's just creepy in its own way. Yeah. The other one was, wait a minute, you're the bad guy sorcerer, and he was trying for the longest time to get me as my character on his side of, hey, we're going to lather up with spells and go nuts together, and I kind of didn't buy into it, and when he saw that I wasn't going to get on Team Crazy, let's go be magic mongers, then he found a convenient way when I was about to blow the whistle on him to just go, oh yeah, you're dead.
Well, that was also the setup of that, where you were basically you two were around the corner from the rest of the party. So the whole, and with the cave, and we were dealing with the slaves, and you were dealing with that.
Yeah.
So we all missed the revelation. All the other characters missed the revelation that the professor's parents were cultists, and we didn't see him. Did he shoot you?
Uh-huh.
He straight up shot you. We didn't see him kill you.
Right.
So no one else in the party actually knew what happened or knew the detail of the professor's parents being cultists.
Right.
And the professor was never going to let any other character in on that. So that whole character thread for him was snipped.
Yeah.
And then in character there was nothing we could do because we weren't aware that anything had happened.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a rough one.
No, but it was still fun. Now, mind you, I mean, I'm not carrying a chip or anything, though. That was still an amazing role-playing scenario. But
if you had the chance to push Professor Wilkerson down or Wentworth down some stairs, you'd take it.
Well, it was interesting that your next character was very, very anti-magic.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and very cradle my rifle. The father pulled me out of the cage, but I was definitely waiting for, if given the opportunity, shoot the professor in the back. Why, yes, I will.
So, Phil, Rob, you're welcome to the group. This next question is we're going to start with you at least. What kind of draws you to a role-playing game? Either one of you can go. I can skip to somebody else and we can come back to you. Not a big deal.
I really hadn't role-played up until this point. I'd done stuff in high school and some of my younger years, and I played mostly your console style or your PC-based role-playing where you don't get that same kind of immersion.
Okay.
So coming in, I was a little nervous. But I think it really, that the first day when I got a chance to really explore the character, and we got a little off the rails with it, but for me, it was important because I had to learn how to get into that character and then learn how that character responded, and I really started to feel a passion for the character. And
you've already learned not to use any kind of voice. Because that gravelly thing went away real quick.
It was funny because I went and had a few friends that downloaded, and they said, we love that you do your voice. And I was like, freaking Matt tells me not to do the voice.
I'm telling you, it's not that you shouldn't do a voice, it's that eventually the voice gets old.
My next character's going to be Russian, though.
Is he really?
Probably.
Yeah, da.
Well, and
yes.
the problem with the voice is your Italian will become Scottish for a moment, or an episode, and then you'll be like, "Oh crap, I don't know, I can't get back into that."
Yeah.
All my accents turn German. I try and do Irish and immediately becomes German. It's awful.
Scott was an English gentleman for the first chunk of that game, and played an English gentleman a couple of times with the accent, and then the rest of the time it was just good old Scott. I mean, there was a clear you tried with your verbiage and stuff. But that accent did not stick.
Because if you can do it for 6 months to a year, it's hard to maintain.
Yeah,
right.
You also you have to be an actor and like have like actual training in the dialect because there's certain words that are going to come out when you're role playing, and you have to make a certain choice at a certain point to be like, I'm going to do the accent or the voice, or I'm going to react naturally in character. And it's hard to think of both at the same time.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. And gravelly is going to end up hurting your neck or your throat.
Yeah.
Oh, you
I
learn,
think
you learn the metal something.
I think the southern accent would be one of the easiest.
Oh, it's hard.
Well, that's what you did with.
It's hard.
Yeah,
Southern
with
is-
Evie.
With McCree, yeah.
And
She
then
had a
it
little bit
went
of twang.
like English
Right.
for about a split second.
Hello.
And
Hello.
I couldn't get it back.
And she couldn't. She goes to the Arthur Conan Doyle's house when he was still alive. And the lady of the house opens. She goes,
hello.
That was one of our weirder side adventures.
Northern England, ladies and gentlemen.
That was a straight
not
on
even
adventure.
London. So.
That was, yeah. It was.
No, I want to tell Rob about this real quick, and Phil, because I don't know. Well, Phil listens.
I listen.
Rob may or may not. But, yeah, basically, just briefly, her character, Eva McCree, which we've met in character in this game, was part of her thing was she was, this Annie Oakley kind of like gunslinger who's a big fan of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and she loved Sherlock Holmes, and so that's kind of her hook into the mysteries, was that she really liked doing that. So when we were in London, she's like, I gotta go, I gotta see his house, and was there with Jesse's character, who's like, oh, you want to see his house? Basically knocks on the door and then just shoves her in to the point where then they think it's a home invasion, and it was just this horrible thing, and they get literally thrown in jail for no reason, nothing to do with the quest, nothing to do with anything. It was great. Yeah.
It was a beautiful side quest.
Yeah. Hello. It's like
Nice.
hello. I can't do it. Not at the door.
Hello. Because
Hello.
she's like,
There we go.
Because she's like, well, y'all, we gotta go see Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I mean, this very southern. Hello. I mean, it was just as cockney. Like, wait, what the
I
hell?
don't understand how it came out. I just till this day, and then it just dropped into proper English. And I couldn't get the southern.
I would point out, I think this is also the beginning, the root of something that's been a through line through many of our other adventures, which is your character being very angry with a decision that Jesse's character has made that has affected you in a terrible way.
What do you mean I'm going to get sold off?
Right.
Well, I think we know we did a side quest, and whether it's come up yet or not, I'm not sure at this point, right? But it's
It will shortly. It's
Right.
the next one that goes up.
And I like my character so much now that I wish I'd had a chance to have him in that, because I think I could have done a lot with the development with that character post.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, up till now, you see even when I'm role-playing him, he doesn't really buy into the magic. He doesn't really buy into the occult crap stuff.
Well-
He thinks it's hokum
And I'd like to see what
Yeah.
Gorp, the marshal, how he would have done in the town with the vicar. With
He would have lost
the
his
werewolf?
crap.
yeah.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
All right, so we're going to move on to Phil. What
I just like to use it as a tool to kind of examine and put my head into a different perspective and force myself to think from a different perspective. I enjoy that mental activity of trying to say, okay, here's how I look at it. Okay, now let me try to see it from the perspective of this character.
Okay.
And these are extreme situations which draw extreme reactions, which heighten everything, and that makes it fun in its own right. But it's still that activity of, okay, this isn't what I would do or how I would feel, but I have to kind of always take that lens and tilt it and say, okay, not what I would do or what I would think, but just in this situation, how would this person or how would my vision of this person act or respond to it? And so sometimes with the professor in the last one, I had to kind of make sure that I wasn't getting too, okay, I'm the player and this is how I want to do it, and be like, okay, well, what would the professor do? Because sometimes there's some tactical situations where like, oh, okay, I see this tactically, this is what I think I should do. I'm like, well, but is this what the professor would do or not? So
Okay, yeah. Scott, what about you? What brings you to role-playing games, besides your ginormous ego and chops?
What brings me to role-playing games?
Yeah.
Well, let's see, 37 years of role-playing.
You're old.
I've been doing it since I was 8. I was doing this since 1980. So, yeah, 33 years.
So not how long, but
wasn't
what
alive
brings you?
then.
What is it that brings you to a game?
Yeah, exactly. There's the youngsters over there. What keeps it bringing? It's the addiction. I mean, it's like crack cocaine. Once you are able to, it is.
Well, let's talk about this in a positive way that doesn't result in.
crack cocaine?
It is
He was active in the 80s.
It's that idea that it's a spark of the divine meets the ability to do things you're not able to do in everyday life. The idea of, well, gee, would you push the professor down the stairs? Yeah, you betcha. Now, in real life, no, I wouldn't. That's the type of behavior that's over the line, and that as a father or a husband or a person would end up getting me jailed, and that person's probably not where. But in the role-playing game, well, yeah, let's do this. Let's get put into the impossible situations. Let's get put into the improbable outcomes. And
Let's
the
watch
idea,
your chest melt off.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Let's get put into the, okay, now I'm really, really uncomfortable, or now I'm personally affronted, and I have skin in the game. Ha ha ha, chest. And that keeps you coming back. Part of it is the challenge. Another one is anything you can do, I can do better. There's a huge chunk of ego invested in there. But for me, it is one of the most consistent highs that you get, i.e. endorphin rush, from the solving of the puzzle, the overcoming of the thing, that I can get on a regular basis without having to do cocaine. I mean, so...
For those not watching, Scott
There
looked
it
right
is.
at me. Big wide eyes.
George, what about you?
Um,
Is it the alienness?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit like what Phil said. Like, you get the chance to be in the headspace of a different person for a while, which is always interesting, and kind of working out just different things that you wouldn't experience in normal life. And I think every kind of game system also encourages a little bit different role play and a different style. So it's like, you know, some of us, play Vampire, and Vampire is a game that's very well suited towards being dark and doing kind of horrible things that you would never ever want to do in real life. But, you want to do some Game of Thrones style politicking and stab people in the back and be awful to someone and, get them killed. In real life, you'd never want to do that. You'd never act that way to someone else, but you can just kind of like have a safe place to maybe let out some negativity, or just to see, what it would feel like to be that way, or to, explore the ramifications of things that you would never do. Maybe you play Dungeons and Dragons and you want to do a little bit more of a heroic thing, and you're playing a paladin or a magic user, and you're going on a high adventure, and it's just a chance to kind of build, we all grew up with, Lord of the Rings and things like that, and other kinds of fantasy settings, but this gives you a chance to make the decisions and tell the story in your own way and create your own characters, and it's that collaborative storytelling thing that role-playing does that not a lot of other things do. And like Rob said about, video games, like Fallout's a really good game, that lets you do a lot of things. You can play a lot of different ways, all those great RPGs, but they don't have that. You're still doing it in a vacuum, relating to a storyline that someone else has created for you. Whereas here at this table, all of us together, we're all bouncing off of each other, bouncing off of Matt as the keeper, and we're all creating a story together that can really go pretty much anywhere. So it's like, okay, we're going to poison an entire village of people. That's ridiculous and crazy. We're doing it. That's how we feel like we've got to solve this situation. Or we're going to come together and unite against a terrible force, or we're going to fall apart because our characters just wouldn't like each other. And sure, it would be better if we all worked together and maybe we all got magic spells and became uber elite power mages, but our characters wouldn't necessarily do that. Some would, some wouldn't, and that might make someone uncomfortable. And so it's, you're just telling a cool story, and I like that a lot. I like storytelling naturally as a thing, and doing it all together in a group is neat.
I love how for you, what was ridiculous about those episodes was that way you killed a whole village full of people. I think the creation of the Flood expedition and the hour-long explanation of what was going on, that was more ridiculous.
The Flood expedition was a moment of genius, and was a pure moment of greatness in this podcast. Created some beautiful characters. Foswell Gimbleton, R.I.P. Flood, what's her name? She's dead now.
Colby Flood.
Flood. She's totally got murdered by those Nazis. We gotta revenge that. We can
well,
do that now. We're in a space we can do that.
Well, and that's one of the things that, yes, you get that sustained high of the enjoyable story, and you get to replay and you get to build. But really, if you're panning for gold by playing these, what you're really looking for is that hour-long explanation of the Flood expedition and Fosworth Gimbleton. That genius that you found as we were panning for that's what you keep coming back for. Is because, sure, the high is good, and chasing the dragon is wonderful, and building the story is amazing. But when you find that bit of genius that then blossoms, you cultivate and blossom into just, oh yeah, I ran my whole game on the Gimbletons. then it's just fantastic.
And if you really like making over elaborate, ridiculous plans, I myself haven't played much of it, but Shadowrun is the game for you to get.
Oh, those plans
if
are.
you just want to do A-team
that is the game for it.
ridiculousness.
Because you spend 3 hours planning the thing, and then it goes wrong about 2 seconds in. You're like, okay, first we're going to negate all these things, and we're going to do this and this. What do you mean they had guard dogs? We didn't plan for guard. Shh. Well, there goes that.
Cybernetic guard dogs.
Yeah, with lasers.
Yep.
Pew.
You know, I sit here at the table every week, and I'm new to the group, and the person I have the most fun watching is George, honestly.
Oh, thank you.
That's all of us.
No,
Except
no,
Scott.
it is. It's hilarious.
No,
Right.
you hold a mirror out. Second favorite person is George.
okay.
First favorite
Agreed.
is you. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Scott's fun, Phil's fun. I like everybody that says, Shirley, you do a great job, but George, I can never get a beat on him. You never know where he's going to go with his character. You never know where he's going to go, and he keeps it to his tight to the hip.
Let's tell you a little story. So the first game of the first.
Is this the alienist one?
No.
I know where he's going.
We
Pajamas.
sit down. Yeah, we sit down for the first game, and George has told me, "Hey, I've got this guy. He's kind of into the, he was in World War II. It went bad, and now he's like dealing with it by adopting very Western or Eastern culture things, but he's not doing it well." And what he didn't tell me was that he was going to introduce himself in a silk Chinese outfit, so it looked like he was wearing pajamas. And from that moment, Scott lost it. He couldn't grasp the concept of this guy he was supposed to be
because I was
contacted
playing
or
a
connected with.
captain, and he was one of my promising.
We were war
protege,
buddies.
This was the up and coming. So I'm expecting to go into this okay, we've got a lockstep chain of command. Everything's going to be good. And all of a sudden, I got a hippie from the Orient. I was like, I'm out.
And not only that, first game, they walk into a room where there's been a murder. They're chasing the guys down the fire escape. Jesse clubs a dude to death, one hit, just bam, dead. George, the guy with all the martial arts, tries to jump off of the fire escape.
The problem is martial arts, as written, allows you to only do actually very limited things, whereas jump is an entirely different skill in which he had not trained, and you do get, I think, a base 25 in it. But yeah, it's like, oh, he launches himself off the fire escape, and he rolled very poorly, falls over and just twists his ankle, and was like, okay, that's cool.
So
But that's the fun of it, yeah.
That's what I mean. Scott, when Scott comes up with his character, I can typically anticipate what he's going to do. Phil, Jestin, and Shirley, you never know.
Just expect her to be angry.
Yeah, that's
Jesse's going to do something.
That's the anticipation. Jesse's going to piss her off, and we're just going to roll with it. But George, it's always this calm, cool face, so you never get a beat on what's going to happen, and you're always like, where the hell did that come from, dude?
So
that is brilliant.
George was raised in a family of professional trolls.
That's
Sort
what
of
it is.
semi-true. My
And-
mom not so much. But
And
the
we
rest of us.
were playing the game, and Shirley's playing this new character. Her first character had just been turned insane. She's playing this doctor of psychology, and George is like, "So you're a doctor of psychology? You know, in those times they called them aliens. You know why?" She's like, "No." He's like, "Well, it's because they thought that there were aliens from Mars and Venus in their head, and that was causing all this." And George is just
Little tiny aliens that entered through your ear.
just
Weaving this tale of poetic beauty.
Straight face.
I'm
like,
and she's like, "Yeah," and I for a second I'm like, "Did they?" No, they didn't, George. But I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to say a word. And Shirley's
everybody
like,
at the
"Oh."
table, straight face, let me fall for it.
And
flat.
Shirley's like,
I mean,
"Really?
like,
Oh, I didn't even know that." And he's like, "No, why would they think that?" What?
That's if I were picking a person to
It
go to
was one
Vegas,
of
it
the
would be
most
George. 'Cause
emotionally
that one could
horrifying
tell a story straight
moments of
face.
my life.
And then it's always this maniacal laugh that comes at the end. And you're like,
Right,
Like that.
With this look on his face, like, what kind of an idiot are you that you would believe that? And it changes from straight-faced, I care about you, that's why I'm telling you these things, to this mocking laugh and this ridicule and scorn that you're like, I feel hurt now. It's amazing.
To be fair, I'm not trying to actually engender scorn or make someone feel like they're dumb.
right.
I find it very entertaining.
It's
Sorry. I find it very entertaining. So it's just amusing to me, and it's not out of I pulled one over and he was just like, I just like telling
Don't
weird
forget
stories.
to
I think
edit
it's
that.
funny people believe them.
It took me
as that.
3
great.
days or 3 different game sessions to finally sit down and be like, now I get him. Okay, now I'm following George. George is okay. He's not this crazy dude. He's good. We're cool. This is gonna be fun.
Oh God, yeah.
So it's all true. It's all true. Everything I said.
Did you answer the question?
Like
Shirley?
the
I don't
story
think
about
you
the
did.
Wiccan?
And you know what? I'm gonna
Brings you role players.
real quick. I'm gonna point our listeners, and I normally wouldn't do this, but we did just a couple weeks ago go over. Jesse, Shirley, and I went over on the Nerds Domain podcast. What brings us into a game? What the keys of storytelling are for us.
Right.
Totally worth listening to. But we also talked about so here's what we came up with, Scott. So if we want to play a vampire game, full of dark politics. So the question was, and I'm going to pose this to you. This is not a listener question whatsoever. This is just Matt talking. If you were going to play in a game and you could choose anyone to run it, anyone whatsoever, and anyone to play in it with you, who would that be? And my answer was, I want to play a dark, vampire, heavy politics game written and run by Aaron Sorkin with people like Patrick Stewart and Martin Sheen and like these people that when they walk into a room, they have a personality that fills the room already. So that when I come in as a neonate and Patrick Stewart's the prince, I don't go, I can take him. This is going to last like 6 weeks for him. I want somebody that when I walk into the room, I go, yeah, I need to be on his side. I need to be on his side and quick. So we'll start with you, Scott. What do you think?
Well, that's tough. I need some time to think.
All right. We can go to somebody else.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
I want to play in the Discworld with Terry Pratchett.
Oh.
Oh my goodness!
Nice.
Tell me that would not be the funnest experience. I mean, if you listen to his
I haven't
monologues,
read any of them, but yeah.
if you listen to a monologue or him go off on a tangent or something, he is just hilarious and he's brilliant. A big loss to the writing world, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy was a phenomenal writer, but the way he weaves the story, it's satirical, but it's fairy tale-esque at the same time, and so you get pulled in. And I think that would be a wonderful person to have running. It wouldn't even. You could really pick any genre, and he would do a good job with it. Like, you know, if he did a vampire, I'd have to run freaking something crazy to keep up with the kind of stuff he's going to throw at you. You know, I wouldn't be able to play a sane character because it wouldn't work. You know, if he did Dungeons and Dragons, you can't really pick a straight path. I don't think he'd let that play out. So,
Ooh, or we could play in something awesome by Paul Verhoeven. He could.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've done the Gen
It's a little bit
Con
of Verhoeven.
breakfast with
Killer Breakfast with
Tracy Hickman. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And that kind of inspired me. I'm like, that would be a lot of fun to see a person like that do it. And that's why I would pick someone like Terry Pratchett.
Right on. Scott, do you have a thought now?
I have a thought now.
Go ahead.
I would like to play a Malkavian clan game. All Malkavians.
Okay.
Run by Robert A. Heinlein.
Ooh.
With John Lithgow. John Malkovich. Benedict Cumberbatch. Scarson, the guy that plays Floki.
Okay, yeah. Skarsgård.
Oh,
Skarsgård, sorry.
Stellar
Yeah.
skateboard.
Yeah, that guy. And I'd like to play. So for those of you out there that don't know what Clan Malkavians, they're vampires who are all in one way or another broken. They're all insane in one variety or another. And I think that that group could come with just. Now, I'm not talking teddy bear. I'm not talking like, I've got a pair of pajamas on and I'm 7 years old. No. I'm talking crazy.
Well, if you look at Floki from Vikings, he is a Malkavian. He
absolutely.
sees these things and he
Yeah.
knows these things.
And he's like, I can tell you how many boards are in this tree. And it's like,
and you turn your back on him and you betray him and he will murder you in the
your
worst way
face.
possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you look at that and like John Malkovich's character from Red and John Lithgow's character from what was the one with Sylvester Stallone and The Height, the whatever. I mean, because Cliffhanger. I mean, he can play some truly diabolical character, or John Malkovich's character from Dangerous Liaisons.
John Malkovich and being John Malkovich.
And being John Malkovich. Yeah. So there are, and I think if given the opportunity, I just don't think Benedict Cumberbatch has been given. He was really good as Alan Turing, but that's not insanity. That's a shit. I think that if Benedict Cumberbatch was given the opportunity of, hey, let's play BS crazy, just bat crazy, that I think he could really. I mean, I'd really like that's a powerful group there that I think would be. Yeah,
Shirley, you want to go because you already told everybody what you wanted to do on the Nerds Main show.
Yeah, but everyone's come up with these amazing ideas.
No, I want you to stick with your original idea.
Okay,
I loved
my
it.
original idea was Josh Whedon with the cast of Firefly, and I want to play the Firefly RPG.
nice. So you would want to be a brown coat?
Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure you didn't come up with something just wild and
Well,
crazy.
Wash died, so somebody has to be the pilot.
You know what I want to do? I really want to find out what Book's story was and why when
I have a comic book I gave you.
You gave me?
I let
Gets
some
bitten by a radioactive book, so it gets all the powers of a book.
Actually, I linked it to somebody, but there's a comic book out there that tells his story backwards.
Oh, really? See, because I want to
It's
know why when
really
the
good.
Alliance thing showed up and he's like, this guy needs medical treatment. Here, let me flash you my ID. And they just went, yeah, fix this guy quick and give him back. We're leaving. Like, what is his story? I want to know that whole thing.
If it was Joss Whedon, I would want to play in the Dr. Horrible universe.
Oh,
Tell me that guy would be great.
My is a hammer. I bleeped that for you.
That is my. The hammer is my.
The hammer is my.
That is my. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna bleep everything. Yeah. What about you, Giorgio?
What was the question again? No, because I think I misinterpreted it. I'm serious.
So you can play a role playing game of any kind.
I thought it had to be a vampire game. That's why I was
No.
confused.
No.
So I've been sitting all the time thinking about
group.
who do I want to run a vampire game for me?
A role playing game of
And
any
I'll
kind.
tell you.
LARP, tabletop, whatever. Who's running it? Who's playing in it with you?
Okay. Well, I was thinking vampire, so I've got 2 vampire answers, and then we'll do
for
another
it.
one. And
Yeah.
so, much like Scott, I would want to do one that's pretty dark, but I was thinking of a little bit darker and a little bit different. Werner Herzog running a vampire game with Klaus Kinski and Brad Dourif and Michael Shannon, who are some of the craziest-eyed people you'll ever find. And what I like about Herzog is that his films are all about kind of like degradation and chaos and just the horrors of nature, which I think plays well into the vampire idea of the beast and being kind of stretched between humanity and an animal, which I think is a very interesting headspace. And Herzog would be very well suited towards that because that's really kind of like one of his obsessions. And at the same time, he's also a total lunatic, as are these actors that he tends to work with. Like in Klaus Kinski, sometimes like when you see him in his films, like he plays, he does in the remake of Nosferatu, he plays Nosferatu, but he just is this like horrifying looking individual who would just like go into these berserker rages that's just very scary. And that'd be a lot of fun for me, and just get a really dark, depressing game out of it where you just feel like just degraded by the entire experience would be a lot of fun. Alternate.
So like games you run.
Okay. Yeah. Alternate would be Oliver Stone in his like really sweaty, like coked up political mindset, like JFK style, for really like game about just like the horrors of power and the power structures that are built to keep the mighty mighty and the weak.
So
and
a venture game.
No, a Tremere game. An all
they would all
Tremere-
work. I mean,
an
it would really
all-Tremere
work for a
game,
more
yeah.
political game where it's just all like backstabbing and just like if you're weak, you're screwed, and you've got to find something. Yeah, just the power structures that are just all over. And when he gets into that conspiracy theory mindset, it's just like who's behind the person who's behind that person who's behind that person, and well, but there's nothing you can do about it. So that'd be fascinating to me.
Well, and now that you do know, we have to kill you.
Yeah. The other option would be Fiasco with the Coen brothers, because the entire goal of Fiasco is to make a movie such as the Coen brothers would make. So I think that'd be a fascinating experience.
Yeah, no, okay. I can get behind that. Phil, I'm going to come to you last. Just to give you some more time. You ready?
Yes.
Go for it.
Lots of time to think. So I am going to follow George. I'm going to kind of give 2 answers. If I wanted more of a campaign, I think that I would want Frank Herbert. I think that he could put together a really good long story. What system? I'm not sure. But probably something that played to whatever his strengths were. Something that would probably obviously have to involve some political intrigue.
Okay, I have to jump in. Would you want to play Dune, the role-playing game, with him as the?
If the system works, I don't know that I've played it.
Does the Dune role
would
playing
you want to
game
be in his
exist?
universe and have him run it?
That'd be a lot of fun.
If he passed away halfway during the campaign, would you want his son and Kevin J. Anderson to take over from
Great
his notes
question.
and run the game?
No.
I wouldn't. I would not.
It's a good question.
With nothing else, perhaps. I don't feel that their work was awful, but
I
was
like
it
Kevin
as
J.
good?
Anderson. I think he's a fine author. I'm not saying that particular situation he was good. I'm saying I think he's a fine author in others.
Agreed.
There really is a Dune RPG? Like, I'm looking at it right now. There is one.
Yeah. What? You thought I just made that up? Okay.
I'm sorry to inform the
I'm
listeners
good,
that
but I'm not George.
that Call of Cthulhu, Achtung Cthulhu has been canceled, and this is now a Dune podcast.
I can't run that. I don't know.
and I'm
Dune.
truly the Kwisatz Haderach, and my name is a killing word.
Nice.
All of our names can be killing words,
Yes.
I feel.
Yeah, I believe they
And
could.
that's going to be wonderful.
Yes.
I'd totally be.
Oh, it's all about the spice.
Long live the fighters.
For the other person that I would have run more of a one shot, probably though, would probably be like Sam Raimi. I think that would be
A lot of fun.
a lot of fun.
Him and his brother both.
Wizards of the Coast killed Dune, the RPG.
Yeah, they did.
Thanks, Watsy.
Yeah. Another reason to hate Watsy.
as
We
for-
love Watsy.
As for who I'd play with, I thought it was interesting that a lot of the other people all volunteered actors. And while I certainly think that all of the actors play a written role very well, but I don't know any of them well enough to know if they can spontaneously generate a role, or how I would play off of them necessarily. So I think that I would probably prefer to play with people that I know, and so I'd probably play with the people that are here and other people that I enjoy to play with that are not here.
I appreciate kissing our butts. That makes me
Does
feel
he get more XP for that?
good. Yeah, he does.
I would
Yeah,
like
go ahead,
to,
Scott.
to, before we run back to Rob, since other folks got two answers, I want to put in my second answer.
Sure, why not?
I want to play with the Wachowski brothers and Michael J.
They're not brothers.
Straczynski.
I'm not being flip.
Which
They're siblings.
Wachowski brothers are we talking about here? Like when in their timeline? Like first Matrix or like
Sense8.
I haven't seen Sense8.
Oh, really
People like
worth
it a lot.
watching. Really worth watching. Really good. Added with Michael J. Straczynski, who was also in Sense8. Yeah, the directing writing. Paranoia is the game.
I've never played. Have you played Paranoia? Because I've got some of the books, but I've never played it. I really want to. Looks hilarious.
You've got your next one shot.
I did say that I want. No, we don't. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I also said that my other answer was Stephen King running something post-apocalyptic.
I'm out. I'm just.
Well, I would-
but
I
wanna
feel
do
like
it
he
with
would-
Christopher Walken and Kevin Pollak and that crazy-ish group of in a paranoia setting. I think would be absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
I
I
would
like
be down.
King, but I know King is divisive to this group, so I didn't bring it.
No. I think that King would describe the world in such a way that I would really feel in it, and at a table it wouldn't be as dry. I think as I find some.
The ending would be disappointing. Though.
Thank you.
It-
Can
no,
I give
the
you
ending wouldn't
and
be
then the hand
disappointing.
of
I
God
really,
came down and fixed
I
everything.
really like Stephen King. Don't
I
get
did
me
too.
wrong.
Oh, no, I-
It wouldn't be disappointing. It would just
fantastic.
be aliens.
It depends on the King novel you hit. That really dictates like whether it'd be a good one or a bad one. But I think like you would if you were looking at something like the Dark Tower. I mean, you could really spin that kind of post-apocalyptic world well.
So then, Rob, which Stephen King? Because apparently I've read the wrong ones. Which Stephen King at the end does the Deus Ex Machina? Does the hand of God not come down and just?
Well, I mean,
fix
that
everything?
Bag
literally
of Bones.
literally happens in the
In
stand,
the stand,
but
right? But I mean, there are other.
Right. I mean, Bag of Bones is a phenomenal read. It plays out well. Hearts in Atlantis I sat down that morning and started it, and I didn't stop reading until I finished it. I
man,
was
some of
up
those
for-
stories also they're not even paranormal. They're just
No.
heavy. Like the one where the guy is the Vietnam guy playing like hearts or whatever.
Yeah, that's Hearts in Atlantis. Is like you have
That's a heck of a story.
yeah, you have some parts of that has a little bit of the paranormal kind of feel to it, but it's not. And like when you get pulled into that character or into because you feel like Bobby O in that, and it just the movie didn't do it justice. It was
Almost
Beautiful.
all the movies are gone.
right.
Well, here's also the thing about Stephen King, and this is totally descending away from our point, but
Go ahead.
Stephen King is one of the best, I truly believe one of the best American writers we have right now. But what he's best at, I think, he's got a lot of really long-form novels that are great, but like, The Stand, it's really great, the ending is not good. He's great as a short story writer. I think his best work is in short stories and like the novellas. And so you read stuff like
Apt Pupil.
The Long John, Apt Pupil, The Mist, these do not have happy endings. They don't have anything coming in and saving them. Those are the ones that are the most affecting, I think. Like the Long Walk, that one does not have a happy ending and is very rough. Very good.
I mean, you even if you some of the stories where he does close off with a happy ending, you don't feel happy walking away. Another one, if you like King or you enjoy that, his son has gone on to write an heart-shaped box.
His son's great. Nosferatu, great.
I haven't read any of them.
Heart-shaped box is one of the best reads I think I've read.
He's got a couple short story collections, which you can listen to my podcast where we review it. But
okay,
he does characterization a little better than Stephen King. He goes by Joe Hill as his writer's name.
Okay.
But he's also written Lock and Key, which is a comic book that is one of the best characterizations. Fantastic comic book with and it's so hard.
And
like the ending,
I've heard good things.
It kills you, man. That one's really strong.
It is so phenomenally good.
The art's on it is great as well. It's the
and
same artist throughout.
Joe Hill is unlike a lot of writers that Stephen King does great in short stories. Joe Hill does great in long form, comic books, short stories. He's multi-talented in writing.
And if you've seen Horns, that's another one. They just did a movie for that that's on Netflix and whatever. But he wrote the book for that.
The book was good. It's a really interesting approach to that world, and you sympathize with a character who's not a good character. That's the part with Joe Hill that really gets you because people aren't inherently good or inherently bad.
Stephen King, he does a lot of fairy tales, and especially his more recent stuff. Like Under the Dome, it's like the characters are either really good or just hideous, awful people with no real motivations. And Joe Hill is much more better with complex characterizations that have shades.
And you do really, really deep. I mean, we're talking ogre type onion layers here. This is crazy, crazy stuff.
Nice.
A good Shrek reference.
Yeah.
But it really is you're gonna get into this character, and just as you start to relate to him and like him, he's gonna tear that away. Or just as you start to truly hate them, he's gonna build it back and give you a reason to attach. And you're like, I shouldn't like this character. I shouldn't dislike this character, but you do.
Right.
And it's
now
crazy.
George, if I go over to your podcast to listen to the review, are you at least going to tell me about some decent T-shirts?
My podcast doesn't have any T-shirts.
Yeah.
But I can tell you about some other T-shirts on another podcast I'm on.
So you should go over to Lizard People, dear readers, and listen to George's podcast. I think it's
You can find the podcast at the kiosk at the mall.
I can quite literally say I've listened to every episode they've made.
That's true.
Because it's all sound edited by Matt Quiett.
Yeah,
nice. I think I did sound edit one episode. But.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Maybe.
Fair enough.
Let me, as a new player, ask experienced players at the table, what would be a great introductory level system or introductory level game to bring someone into the genre?
I would first like to apologize to our listeners because we've gone a little over our normal round. I have no problem with that question. I'm just going to stop us real quick here. We're going to come back next week to hear the answer to that question and to get deeper into this. All right?
Spoiler alert, the answer is probably not D&D.
We'll talk to you guys real soon.
And that will do it for us tonight on the Nerds Domain presents Masks of Nyarlathotep. Remember, you can email us at nerdsdomain@gmail.com or find us on facebook.com/nerdsdomain, on Twitter @nerdsdomain, or over at our site, nerdsdom.com. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. You can head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. We want to thank Josh Schott for our music. Don't forget, you can support us at patreon.com/nerdsdomain. And check out our shirts at slashloot.com.